Realistic character building is one of the hardest parts to writing, but I'm here to show you tips and tricks that have helped me and will hopefully help you too. In this installment, we'll look at how to begin to create characters for people who may be more along the lines of gardeners, aka pantsers, than planners. Hello, my lovelies! It's Heather here, author and artist of the book The 13th Element Mage Call, and this vid will explore my thoughts on character creation and how to start from the beginning. I know I've been overwhelmed when thinking about the different characters I may or may not want in a story, and to be honest, I still don't think I have every aspect down. But knowing where to start is immensely helpful and can help break the process down into smaller steps and goals. So let's get started! The first thing I look for in establishing any character or relationship is the tone of the story. I cannot stress how imperative the tone is to writing your characters. To find the tone, ask yourself what kind of book you want to write. A happy, fluffy, feel-good story, or a grimdark horror, a gritty mystery, or a cozy mystery. Why? Well, you probably wouldn't expect a character from Bluey to show up in a grimdark horror exactly as portrayed in the children's show. Under normal situations, having a fun-loving children's show character in, say, Game of Thrones would undermine any grimdark tone. Now, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. If something like that interests you, then please have at. Also, send me a link. That could be highly amusing satire. But if you want a satire, then that's the tone you're going for, not a grim, dark horror. I'm starting here because everything I say in this series is all about how well you can help readers understand your story. Figuring your tone out will give you the best chance of finding characters that will portray that story, whether it's to show the harsh undertones of a gritty, angsty world, or to make everyone wryly laugh, or to give a hopeful, warm feeling. On the screen, you'll see a table similar to the esoteric process I use to figure out a tone when coming up with an idea. It's amazing how classifying your idea can help. This is also my way of figuring it out. If you don't like a target audience column in there and think something different will help, or if there needs to be more options for the type of story you want, have at. Knock yourself out. This is to help you find whatever works for you. Other target audience columns could be categories like children, elderly, or religious. The reason I only have middle grade, YA, or adult is because I don't care to get more specific than that most of the time. But some people may write specifically for religious groups, or another group. That's why I suggest you customize it to you. Note, this list is by no means exhaustive. Anyway, an example. Let's say I come up with an idea that makes me laugh. Like the idea of Earth being a magic null world where humans have been imprisoned because they were just too magic and scary for the rest of the universe. Yes, I am writing a story about that. Could I make that a dark drama? Yes. But because the thought made me laugh, I'm leaning more towards adult comedy. Something a little closer to, say, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or Discworld, if a little more serious. And there's my tone, adult comedy sci-fi with hints of satire and drama. Yes, my character will probably have some trauma in his past, and I firmly believe that stories should encompass a large range of types. But the audience I will likely appeal to will be middle-class adults looking for something new or amusing. So my tone will definitely lean towards the comedy and not super dark. My characters have to fit that. Note, fluff is just that. Really sweet or fun stories that may or may not have a lot of conflict, just so we're on the same page definition-wise. Alright, meet Steve. He's a pretty average, jaded guy who works in middle management and wants to make a good difference in the world. He also has a sarcastic and slightly overdramatic sense of humor. For this story, I wanted a pretty average guy because I want him to be relatable in that way for this particular story. I figured someone who was about as average as someone can be, or someone completely opposite of someone who could make a difference in the world, would be best. Again, for relatability, I wanted the former. If I was going for a less satirical story, I'd likely go with someone who had lost everything and was down in the dumps. This is how my character relates to the tone. Both would have difficulties. Writing a relatable character has the chance of making the story boring or bland, while making a character who may be living on the streets could lose some relatability with my target audience. Trading relatability for a harsh reality makes a point, but I wanted something more lighthearted than that, hence why I chose what I did. Once I've got that figured out, I know where a lot of my themes will come into play, many relating to mediocrity rising above obstacles and finding faith in themselves or the world around them, or what hard work can do, or not giving up, or a dozen other things, or a combination of any of them. Now, because this is a comedy, I had to consider what I wanted with his sense of humor. There were many directions I could have gone. A jokester or prankster, a super innocent or particularly dumb character, a straight or deadpan guy who won't laugh for anything, to name a few. In the end, I decided to go with someone who was sarcastic and a little dramatic, mainly because it fits with the idea of the normal person, and if I play my cards right, it will keep readers laughing. So Steve is a creative type who loves his music and hates his job, and who can roll with the punches while still calling people out. I'll show this by having him be sarcastic and snarky with most of the people he meets. Even when he's trying to be respectful, he's going to have those cynical, jaded, sarcastic thoughts. That's honestly a great place to start. But what if you're writing the next Game of Thrones? A fantasy drama grimdark with plenty of tragedy to go around. In that case, let's come up with a character that matches that tone. Super serious with a blatantly tragic past and or future that shapes their world. Meet Brock. He's also a musician. He plays the lyre, though coming up with an original instrument may be helpful in a fantasy. And he has seen too much war to ever believe everything lost was truly worth it. He's angry, bitter, frustrated, and longing for a past he can only barely remember. There's definitely a story behind those 3 scars on his cheek, and from his clothes, he's obviously from a colder climate. And again, that's a great place to start. My next piece of advice is to observe life. Whether to tell a story, make a statement, or simply communicate, people, and thus even the simplest of the best characters out there, are more complex than is first apparent. I don't believe in a perfect story. It doesn't exist. There are some downright magnificent ones out there, brilliantly written, and they make you think. But there will be something wrong in every fiction and most nonfiction books out there. I mean, I loved the Harry Potter series, but man, there are so many plot holes. But so? It's still one of the most popular and successful franchises of all time because people relate to it. Some people read it to escape, and some people read it to find camaraderie. There are probably other reasons too, but either way it appeals, no matter what you think of the author. I think part of that appeal is because it's messy, similar to real life in a lot of ways. Not perfectly, though, but still. The best way to show how a character would react is to draw from real life. The best experience will be the things that you've directly witnessed. Next are anecdotal stories told by someone else, even online, though you have to take those with a grain of salt. Last are other stories that you find good or interesting. But by looking for experiences and observing real life, you can help the reader more fully immerse themselves in your story. So, for example, how would you react if your house burnt down, or if you got a check for $1 million? How would that differ from how your mother would react? Your father, your sister, your brother, your best friend, your worst enemy, your cousin, the lady down the street, your boss, the bus driver. People interact with others every day. Watch how they do it, and you'll find realistic ways to have your character act and interact. Subtext helps build a person's mask and facade. We as humans regularly use these for interacting with different people. It's like building shortcuts and norms so that the people we're close to know we're all right or need help. It can also be a way to protect yourself from people who would regularly hurt you, protecting vulnerabilities. They can also be taken advantage of, as some shortcuts lead to very different places than intended, but that's getting into some psychology that is not within the scope of this video. Having one character act a certain way around someone and different around someone else can be difficult to write. Very difficult, but it's a way of helping characters seem more realistic. especially when characters fall into that role so deeply they don't know how to act outside of that mask. Acting outside that mask tends to happen when they are confronted with unusual circumstances not covered by their normal masks and facades. One of the best examples I can think of with this is how Harry Potter acts around his relative's house versus how he acts around his friends. I have some issues with how Harry is written throughout the books, but this is definitely not one of them. Around his relatives, he's usually defensive, quiet, resentful, and resigned. Around his friends, he's usually outgoing, reckless, sassy, and relaxed. Another good example of this is Pride and Prejudice. Now, the main character, Elizabeth Lizzie Bennet, hates to hide who she is within the norms of society, though one could make an argument that she does anyway. But I feel that looking at her sisters is where you'll find the best examples. How all of the girls act when they are just around each other versus how they act when around literally anyone else is a masterclass in masks and facades. Because of course it is. It's Jane Austen. A lot in this video is me trying to put down my basic and natural thought processes into words. Not easy to do, but I really hope that I've given you a good place to start. For deeper character building, you can check out my link below to my character interaction video or to the link I have of Abbie Emmon's character building videos. I highly recommend them. They're very good. Now, for today's exercises. Take an idea, any idea, and pick a tone for it. You can also just pick a tone and make some characters to fit that tone, but I find it easier to start with an idea first. If you want an idea, look up a list of prompts, even though those have issues. Hopefully they can get the juices flowing. Or you can go to the fantasy name generator and ask for a story prompt there. Make it fit the tone that you want, then come up with the basics for one main character. If you can, also come up with the basics for at least one side character. And that's it. You're welcome to post links to what you've come up with below, and I'll try to get to them. Please keep things respectful and know that links to Google Docs are always welcome. No matter what you choose to do, I encourage you to just get writing. Also, thank you to my patrons for their lovely support. You're the reason I can do things like this. Tier 3 and 4 patrons are on the screen right now. If you would like to support me, I'll post a link to my Patreon below, or you can pick up my book, The 13th Element, Mage Call. It's a fantasy about a failed Magitech society where magic collapsed, and a former mage gets an impossible call from magic itself to try and fix it. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and until next time, goodbye, my lovelies!